Welcome to the Pulse of Africa community. I hope you're doing great today. If you're joining us for the first time, don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe to stay informed and connected to Africa's most important news reports. Your engagements will help this video to reach more people. Thank you very much. Let's begin today's news with a tense exchange between a black woman and the French president. Last week in Paris, a tense dialogue unfolded between President Emmanuel Macron and a young black activist who refused to accept France's depiction of itself as Mali's benefactor. The exchange began when the woman stood up at a public forum and directly challenged Macron's assertion that France intervened in Mali purely for humanitarian and security reasons. She pressed him on how French military involvement could be seen as anything but self-interested, pointing to the legacy of colonial exploitation that, in her view, is still very much alive in West Africa. Macron, visibly caught off guard, admitted that the 2011 intervention in Libya was a mistake, but maintained that maintaining troops in Mali was essential to combat terrorism and stabilize the region.
What is happening in the Sahel is nothing but the consequence Pompeian of what was done in Libya. That intervention in Libya, where you forgot, when I say you, I don't mean you personally, I mean your position. You forgot about the existence of the African Union. Mr. President, as you like to say, we are in Mali to help Mali. If we hadn't come to the Sahel, there wouldn't be a government in Mali today. I want to tell you that if it weren't for Africans, there wouldn't be a France today. We are connected, we are connected. We are connected. Stop saying that you came to help us. No. Because terrorism doesn't only threaten Mali. You are threatened as well. Stop making us feel guilty by putting us in the position of victims.
But Adam, I'm not making you feel guilty.
Mr. President, I haven't finished.
I'm not making you feel guilty. I'm actually trying to restore a reciprocal and respectful dialogue. Yes, we weren't there just for our own interests when we arrived in Mali in 2013. That's a fact. However, what you said about Libya, I've said it several times as president. I agree with what you said. In Libya, we did not respect the sovereignty of a people, and that was a mistake.
All right, thank you for acknowledging that. And if you recognize that, you'll see that what is happening in the Sahel, is only the consequence of that intervention. So you are in the Sahel to correct the mistake you made in Libya. And in trying to fix those mistakes, you are making other mistakes. Mr. President, I remind you that foreign military intervention has never solved the problem. What is the situation in Libya today? What is Afghanistan like today? So military intervention is not going to fix things. I don't want my country to end up like Libya. Take responsibility. And above all, stop saying that you are here to help us. No, you are not here to help us. We are in this together. We have a common enemy. We are fighting it together. Stop with these paternalistic speeches saying that you are going to help us, that you are going to... No, we don't need help. We need cooperation. We need partnership. And we are connected by history, but we are also connected by dangers. We are connected by challenges.
Turning south to Libya itself, a former advisor to the late Muammar Gaddafi has lifted the veil on how billions of dollars are drained from Africa every year. Speaking to African journalists, he recalled standing beside Gaddafi during the final days of Tripoli in 2011, watching as the fight for control extended from the battlefield into the boardrooms of Europe. It wasn't just in the desert, it was in the spreadsheets, and he said, describing how multinational corporations use legal contracts to funnel wealth out of African nations. According to him, over $88 billion leaves the continent annually through legal channels that appear as partnerships on paper, but function as exploitative deals in practice. He cited United Nations data to back his claim, not rumor, he emphasized, but hard figures. When you compare that number to all foreign aid loans and investments combined, the advisor argued, you see, it's not poverty that's killing Africa, it's a legalized form of looting.
When I stood beside Gaddafi during those historic moments in Tripoli in 2011, we saw the battlefield clearly. It wasn't just in the desert, it was in the spreadsheets, in the banks, in the loopholes written by European lawyers and enforced by African presidents turned accountants of empire. Let me give it to you plainly. Africa loses over $88 billion every single year to illicit financial flows. That is not a conspiracy theory. It's the United Nations' own data. That's more than all the foreign aid, loans, and investments combined. It's not poverty that is killing us. It's looting. Legalized, digitized looting, where corporations like Glencore, Anglo American, and Shell underdeclare profits, use transfer pricing scams, and route money through the City of London, Switzerland, and the Cayman Islands. Gaddafi wanted to build an African monetary fund precisely to end this theft. A fund with our own money, our own currency, our own rules. They bombed him for that because they feared a united Africa that controls its gold, its oil, its banking system. They don't mind Africa rising as long as it's on their terms, with their banks holding the key. So what do we do now? We fight not with empty slogans, but with financial revolution. Shut down tax havens, ban anonymous companies, reclaim revenue from multinationals, create pan-African tax treaties, and audit every foreign extraction contract. Build sovereign wealth funds and invest in African futures, not Western stock exchanges. This is not charity we are asking for, it's restitution. If we recover just a fraction of what is stolen every year, we could fund education, healthcare, infrastructure, and renewable energy without touching a cent from the IMF or World Bank. The revolution begins with receipts. Follow the money and you will find the enemy. And when you find the enemy, you know where to strike.
Let's talk about Bamako, Mali's capital, where President Assimi Goita has been quietly rewriting history, at least the mining history. In a recently surfaced video, Goita announced that his government had completely reevaluated all gold mining contracts, introducing new terms that put Malian interests first. Standing before a backdrop of the Senegal River that cuts through southern Mali, as one of Africa's top gold exporters, Mali had long seen millions of its mineral wealth flow overseas, while ordinary citizens struggled with basic services. But Goita, who took power in a 2020 coup, wasted no time. In 2023, he pushed through a new mining code that demanded a larger state stake in operations and eliminated key tax exemptions that foreign companies had grown used to. At first, companies like B2Gold, seeing the writing on the wall, came to the negotiating table and agreed to the new framework. But Barrick Gold, led by CEO Mark Bristow, held out. Bristow, it seems, expected Mali's leadership to blink as past governments had. Instead, Bamako issued arrest warrants for 4 Barrick employees, accusing them of money laundering and financial misconduct, and even targeted Bristow himself. Sources say that in late 2024, Malian authorities flew helicopters into Barrick's Lulo mine site over the weekend, an operation that reportedly seized 3 metric tons of gold valued at around $250 million. News of the seizure stunned the mining world and prompted Mali's government to bill Barrick $5.5 billion for what it claimed were unpaid taxes and damages. Meanwhile, Nigeria finds itself mired in its own budget scandal, one that has ordinary citizens asking how $177,000 can possibly light a single street lamp. In Abuja last month, Senator Abu Ibrahim Ningi shocked the nation when he revealed that the 2024 budget allocated 212 billion naira for 1,150 streetlights, equating to roughly 184 million naira, approximately $177,000 per unit. He went further to expose that the Senate had padded the budget by 3 trillion naira, including 2.5 billion naira, earmarked for refrigerators and generators for Senate President Godswill Akpabio's constituency. One street light for 184 million naira is absurd, Ningi declared during a special session, asking how any contractor could justify such figures. Where are the lights from last year's budget? His critics demanded.
Senator Ningi was actually right when he said Nigerian State padded the 2024 budget with 3 trillion naira. Let me explain. So the Nigerian senators are budgeting 1,150 street lights at 212 billion naira, meaning they're going to use 184 million naira to install one street light. one street light for 184 million naira. Let's continue. The Nigerian Senate are also budgeting 193 million naira to sink one borehole. Maybe they are planning to sink borehole in every constituency in Nigeria. Now, when Senator Ninge talked about budget padding, he was actually right. Not forgetting that the federal government is approving 2.5 billion naira for the Senate President Godswill Akpabio to buy refrigerator and generator for his constituency. Maybe he's buying generator and refrigerator for everybody or every family in his constituency. Maybe they have better explanation.
Behind these headlines lies a larger movement. Dr. Arikana Chihombori-Kwao, former African Union ambassador to the United States, passionately argues in a recent interview, Africa must reclaim its narrative. She reminds viewers that the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 85 arbitrarily carved up the continent, and the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is the first real attempt to rewrite those lines on the map.
The myths. What are the myths about Africa? Just name three things that we should get in our minds that when Africa is in the conversation or Africa is in the news, that we should be thinking about. Three myths.
One, Africa is the richest continent on earth by far.
Hello?
Yes. No continent comes even close.
Uh-huh.
One. Two, we are all Africans because life began in Africa. Life as we know it, I can tell you, my brother, right now, you do your DNA testing, I can tell you a good 50% of you is African. We are all Africans. And thirdly...
Proud to be.
Proud. Thank you. Thank you. And then thirdly, I want everybody to know about the wonderful news coming out of Africa. Remember we were talking about the Berlin Conference, how we were designed to fail through these little countries we were divided up? Well, guess what? Game is over. April this year, we saw our leaders come together and signing the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Yes.
Yes, so we have 50 countries that have already signed, and we're going through the process of ratifications. We only need 22 of the 50 to ratify. Already we have 10 ratifications deposited with the African Union.
So free trade agreement in Africa.
In Africa.
For African countries.
We're going to negotiate as one bloc. We have made a commitment as Africans that the only way we can survive, which is what our Pan-African fathers wanted, to speak with one voice, one continent, one voice. And we're finally getting there. We're finally beginning to bury the Berlin Conference.
Okay, African Union. What is it? What is it all about?
African Union. Remember when our Pan-African leaders met in 1964 and created OAU? It was during that wonderful Organization of African Unity. That's when Kwame Nkrumah proclaimed Africa was for the Africans and African Union now. 55 years later, we are yet to attain that perfect African Union. But that's okay. We are getting there. He also proclaimed you were not African because you were born in Africa, but rather you were African because Africa is born in you. Now, this is the most beautiful part. Yes.
Nice.
As I've lived in this country, I've met many people who may never have been born in Africa or never have even set foot in Africa, but they have Africa born in them. So I see a lot of brothers and sisters who may not look like me, but they're definitely Africans. Since 1964, after the creation of the OAU, the whole purpose of the OAU was to rebuild the Africa and destroy the boundaries that were imposed upon us during the Berlin Conference. It's been difficult because remember that seed of divide and conquer, it's deep among us. Trying to get us to work together. We are so divided among tribal lines, religious lines, even now racial lines and national lines. So we are very divided people. But getting us to realize that we are suffering from the legacy of colonialism is work in progress. We must keep preaching. People must have a serious conversation with the image in the mirror because the healing starts here.
How about your job, your mission?
My mission, I sent here by the 55 African heads of states and my chairman, Musa Faki Mahamat, two major mandates: to promote Africa in the Americas and also to strengthen the bridges between Africa and the Americas and to bring the children of the diaspora back home.
The question remains, will Africa's leaders and its people seize this historic moment to redefine partnerships, or will old patterns of dependence persist? Do you believe Mali's bold stand will inspire other nations to follow suit, or might it trigger a harsher response from international powers? Share your thoughts in the comments below and join the conversation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an in-depth report from Pulse of Africa.